Money is something that touches every single part of our lives. But today, we're not going to talk about the usual stuff, like hot stock tips. Nope, we're going deeper. We're going to explore the psychology behind it all, the mind game that, believe it or not, dictates your financial success way more than any fancy spreadsheet ever could. So here's a question that kind of breaks your brain a little. Why do brilliant people go broke? Seriously, if getting rich was all about being smart, then every PhD and rocket scientist would be a millionaire, right? But they're not. The reality is, financial success is what you'd call a soft skill. It's way more about how you behave than what you know.
And this really gets to the heart of it. On one side of the coin, you've got raw intelligence. The kind of stuff that gets you good grades and a fancy degree. But on the other side, behavior. We're talking patience, discipline, and keeping your cool. And when it comes to money, trust me, the scale is tipped heavily towards behavior.
Okay, so let's just bust this myth wide open. We're about to dive into a real-world story that proves, without a doubt, that behavior beats brilliance every single time. I want you to meet someone. He's our unlikely millionaire, a local janitor who lived a super quiet, totally unassuming life. He didn't have an MBA, he never made any headlines, and he definitely wasn't some kind of financial wizard. Just a regular guy with a pretty extraordinary secret. So what was his big secret? Well, here's the thing. There wasn't one. It was a profoundly simple strategy. He just saved his money consistently, invested it patiently, and completely ignored all the noise and drama of the market. And he did this for decades. And what was the result of all that calm, quiet, disciplined behavior? $8 million. Think about that. He didn't get there from one brilliant, lucky move. He got there from thousands of small, boring, disciplined decisions, all compounding over a lifetime. And this is where the contrast just smacks you in the face. On one side, you've got the janitor's quiet success. And on the other, you've got highly educated professionals, doctors, lawyers, who are often drowning in debt and completely stressed out about money. It just proves that all the knowledge in the world doesn't save you from the real enemies of wealth. So that brings us to what I like to call wealth's true enemies. And here's a spoiler. They aren't a bad economy or a lack of opportunity. Nope. They're the battles we're all fighting inside our own heads every single day.
And here they are. Think of these as the four horsemen of financial ruin: fear, impatience, ego, and envy. Fear, that makes you panic and sell at the absolute worst time. Impatience has you chasing those shady get-rich-quick schemes. Ego stops you from ever admitting you're wrong. And envy? Well, envy makes you do some truly, truly reckless things with your money.
This right here is such a crucial point to understand. Building wealth is not always a comfortable ride. The price of getting those high returns is emotional discomfort. Your ability to just stay calm while everyone else is panicking, that's the real skill. That's the fee you have to pay for long-term success.
And let's talk about envy for a second, because it's such a powerful trap. You see your neighbor get a bigger house, or your friend gets a faster car, and suddenly everything you have feels, well, inadequate. This whole keeping up with the Joneses mindset, it's a dangerous, dangerous catalyst for making really bad financial decisions. So this brings us to a much healthier and frankly happier way of thinking about all this. True wealth isn't about having more stuff than the people around you. It's an internal thing. It's about that feeling of freedom and contentment that comes from knowing when you have enough to live the life you actually want. Okay, so where does that personal definition of enough even come from? It's funny, it's not really something we consciously choose. It's more like a story that was written for us long before we ever earned our first paycheck. I want you to think about your childhood for a second. If you grew up in a house where money was always tight, a constant source of stress, you probably view money as something kind of unsafe, maybe even dangerous. But if you grew up with more stability, you might just see it as a tool, like a hammer. Look, neither one is right or wrong. It's just your personal starting point, your money story. And this is exactly why judging other people's financial decisions or even beating yourself up over your own is often completely pointless. We're all playing the game with a different script. The real goal isn't to find some perfect strategy to copy from someone else. It's to understand yourself, your own psychology, and then build a system that actually works for you. All right, so how do we actually go from just understanding this stuff to taking action?
It's time to build a new financial mindset, and I've got 3 simple steps to help you get there. Okay, step 1, slow down. Seriously, most bad money decisions are rushed. Try this. Put a 24-hour rule in place for any non-essential purchase over a certain amount. Give yourself time to breathe. Second, try to detach from the emotion. Before you make a big move, literally write down the logical pros and cons, almost like you were giving advice to a friend. And third, and this is the big one, define enough. This isn't some fuzzy, abstract idea. It's a number. Figure out what you actually need to live a life you value, and you'll be free from that pressure of always comparing yourself to others.
Look, understanding your own psychology is the huge first step. The next one is deciding which part of that money story you inherited you're ready to leave behind. So the question for you is, what chapter are you going to rewrite first?